Aloha and welcome to Thumbing Through Yesterday, the podcast where we take our favorite books down from the shelf, dust them off, and remind ourselves why it is we love them so. My name's Tom Galley. Joining me today, we've got Tony Pasculi.
Thanks, Tom.
What are we doing today?
Today we're doing Dave Barry's first novel. Dave Barry, better known as the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for some Miami newspaper I can't remember the name of, writing just sort of ridiculous columns about ridiculous things. And a bunch of silly books along the same lines. And this is an actual, credible, still funny, but you know, plausible novel. Well, it's not plausible. It's not. Okay, I'm not going to go that far.
It's more plausible than we want it to be.
It is plausible as a novel, but nothing that happens in this book is remotely plausible.
You know, I was thinking there was a humorous columnist that had a very similar name, but this is actually the same guy.
This is the same guy. Yeah.
Wow.
And because it's the same guy, there's a warning that comes at the beginning of the book. I'll start with a warning. This is not a book for youngsters. Because his newspaper column is very kid-friendly and very funny and light and goofy. And this has some serious bad guys in it doing bad guy things.
It does.
And some bad language. And so he puts that warning in up front. Yeah.
A couple of really cringe-worthy moments.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a favorite book for a couple of reasons. One, because I was always a huge fan of Dave Barry. I got to the point where I couldn't read his columns anymore because that humor just kind of gets a little stale for me. It pushes a little too hard on the humor to actually be fun. Occasionally you'll get just one will hit you in just the right way. Or I was very lucky actually to be at a writer's conference where Dave Barry was in attendance and he read one of his columns out loud. And it was just about the funniest thing I'd ever heard. It's the one about the exploding whale.
Okay.
And that whole audience was just dying. But yeah. So, but for the most part, his columns I've sort of outgrown that. Not to be condescending about it. Me personally, my style has evolved in a different direction than what he's doing now. But this book, absolute delight. I love it. To me, this book is to his columns as Douglas Adams' Dirk Gently books are to Hitchhiker's Guide.
Okay.
It's a more sort of subtle, refined humor that's not so in your face. It's still pretty in your face, but less so than his columns are. And there's enough narrative that makes the humor more satisfying. I get sort of tired of just ha 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 all the way through. I do want a good story to hang my humor on, and he gives a pretty tightly plotted story, even if it is, as I say, implausible.
Yeah, one of the things that was really striking about this story to me is how incredibly interlocked everything is. In fact, one of the things that I think is a sore point is almost every repeat character in here. Virtually every character in this book is tied into this central plot. And there's a notable exception to that, which is the client from hell.
Yes.
You know, and I'm disappointed because we spend, a decent amount of time being introduced to the client from hell, and he comes back. We've got 2 different repeat appearances, and yet he ends up not being part of the story.
He is indirectly a part of the coda He
does. He does end up getting what was his name? Adrian?
Elliot,
a job.
Yes,
because of the work there. But yeah.
His so Elliot in the beginning is dealing with his client from hell who's making him do a terrible graphic design for a terrible beer called Hammerhead Beer, and I got to say, the first time I read this, I was like, how awful to work with this overbearing, client. And as I'm reading it this time, I'm like, the client is right. Elliot is wrong. What are you trying to do? Force your aesthetic sensibility on this guy who is paying you for and he told you what he wants. He wants get hammered with Hammerhead, and there's a boat, and there's a guy, and there's a girl with big tits. Boom, done. And he's like, what if we do something subtle and sort of like, no, you're selling beer, dude. Sell the beer.
Well, this man, Elliot, never set out to be a graphic designer, right?
True.
He set out to be a journalist. He set out to be a serious journalist. And when that career fell apart because of, disagreements with management, he just he grasped at a straw. I'll launch an advertising agency. How hard can it be, right?
Yes. Knowing nothing about advertising or graphic design or even how to use Photoshop. He doesn't mention Photoshop by name, but I assume he's doing some sort of desktop publishing software, which he doesn't even know how to use.
Doesn't know how to use. He can't get the scale right because he can't find his reading glasses to open the manual. This guy is a sad sack. I mean, he's a lovable sad sack, but he's in a bad way. His life is in a bad way.
He is a lovable sad sack, and that's something else that Barry does really, really well with this. He creates a whole series in 3 quick sketches in the first few chapters. He creates a whole set of lovable sad sacks that we immediately feel sympathy for, and he sets them up with good antagonists who just like, I hope this lovable sad sack overcomes that villain and gets with that romantic partner. Yeah, and they do.
And this book is almost all about couples. It's almost all about pairs.
Yes,
right. So I mean, Elliot and Anna, the 2 teenage kids, the 2 Russians.
The 2 FBI agents.
The 2 FBI agents, Snake and...
The 2 scumbags, Snake and Eddie. Yeah.
Eddie, right. There's almost nobody solo in here except for Herc.
Herc and
Arthur
Baker
Herc.
Later. Baker, who's a police chief, I think.
Detective.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, there's all these dynamics going on, right? And everyone has a different villain. Everyone has a different protagonist, every little story, and yet they're all cobbled together by these farcical strings, but it really is tightly integrated.
It is. I think I would have to say that if this wasn't a funny book, it would be too tightly integrated. It would just be like, come on, dude. Like spend a little more time on fewer characters and flesh them out a little bit more. It doesn't have to be this madcap. But because it's a humor book, the madcap works pretty well. And having these wild, array of characters that are all sort of dovetailed so neatly together is kind of it's kind of a miracle to watch it in motion. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet they're all distinct, right? Even though we don't spend a whole lot of time with any one character, they're all distinct. They've got distinct voices, distinct motivations.
I have to confess, when we get to the airport, I was getting muddled because there were so many pairs in operation.
And they're all in the same spot at the same time, the same crisis, or versions of the same crisis. It does get a little bit muddly in there.
And there are also 2 characters named Leo, I believe, which is like, that's just not necessary, Dave.
Yeah, but Leo the Russian doesn't go by, or he does go by Leo, right? That's not his Russian name, right?
Yeah.
There was a moment in here. Now, I was reading along, and then I came to a scene, the restaurant scene, where Henry accosts the lawyers who are smoking their cigars.
Oh, yeah.
And I start to read that as like, I have seen this in a film somewhere.
Yes.
And I read that scene through, and it's like, I have seen this. And I can see, so I jump on YouTube and look it up. And sure enough, this is a movie, right? So they have actually turned it into a film. And the scene, watch on YouTube, is really faithful to the description in the book, but it clicked when I read that scene. The guy standing there trying to get these people to put their cigars out. He tries to be nice before he hurts the guy.
Yeah,
and that's so much fun. The guy's like, you've just committed assault. He's like, I remember when time was you actually had to hit someone. That's his response. He goes back, he sits down, he keeps eating his steak.
That was, so have you seen the whole movie or just the YouTube?
Well, I know that I've seen the whole movie because the scene awokened it, right?
It clearly wasn't very memorable.
It was probably quite a while ago. It was a little bit annoying because since I had seen the movie, now I'm waiting because there are 3 or 4 other movie memories in my brain, and I'm waiting for these to happen in the book. And one of them does. They open the suitcase, and the guy says, it's a garbage disposal, and he turns it on. I knew that was coming.
Okay.
But there was a scene that never happened where the 2 killers get off of the bus at the airport, and the 2 feds and the police detective run into them at that moment. I don't think the thing with the snake is there. But anyway, Henry has got a golf bag with his rifle in it. And the 3 law enforcement agents see it, and the 2 feds say, not our problem, and keep going. And the police detective is there. Do I follow them for the bomb? So he reaches over, he takes the bolt out of the bolt-action rifle and then chases off after the guys. And Henry says something cool about, maybe ma'am, it's not so bad or whatever.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
But that's not in the book.
I do have to watch that movie again. I remember being very disappointed by the movie because I enjoyed this book so much, so thoroughly enjoyed it. And when I saw the casting for the movie, which all I remember now is Stanley Tucci and a clip Literally all I remember from this movie is a clip from the trailer where the guy says, I think these two scumbags come in and they're holding up the Russians in the bar and they're like, give me your wallet. And he throws the wallet and he hits the guy in the forehead and lands on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, give me your keys. And he throws the keys and hits the guy in the forehead and lands on the ground. Literally all I remember from the movie, but I remember it wasn't great. So
yeah, I'm not sure if I want to go look it up. It's probably out there on Netflix or something like that.
This is more a warning for our vast listenership. Don't make the mistake of saying, oh, yeah, that movie sucked. I'm not going to read the book. Because as is often the case, the book is so much better. As with Fletch, right? If you've seen the movie, you have not even come close to experiencing the book.
Yeah, I don't think there was actually anything in common other than the name of the character.
Oh, the first Fletch movie was pretty close, except that story-wise, but tonally it was way off because it was turned into a Chevy Chase movie.
Yeah.
Getting off track. Back to this. Back to Big Trouble. One more thing from the introduction to the acknowledgments and warnings, which I just love, because this is set in Florida, and Florida has a reputation of being our crazy state. Well earned. And he says, I especially want to thank Carl Hyacin, who is the master of the genre. I try to write in the bunch of South Florida wackos genre. And I think that just perfectly encapsulates what this book is all about a bunch of crazy shit happening in Florida that can really only happen in Florida. Yes.
Yep. There are just so many fun things about this. Puggy, what a fun character that is. And we don't know where this guy came from or how he became what he is. But, he's a homeless person. He ends up in Miami. And while he's in Miami, he's only been there a couple of hours. And guy offers him $10 to vote in an election, and he ends up voting 4 times and getting $35. And, he just can't imagine having this much money.
Yeah.
And this is how he gets introduced, right? He finds a bar. He decides he wants to spend money on beer. And he goes and he finds the most disreputable bar he possibly can, so he'll feel at home there.
He's amazing. We don't get a lot of characterization for Puggy, but he's got such low expectations that he's continually delighted by everything that happens to him.
Yep.
Like he has $35 and he has a beer. That's like the best day of his life. And then he gets beaten up in that same bar, but then he gets offered a job. And then he finds a tree to sleep in. And then he meets Nina. And it's just like his life is complete. Yeah. So, yeah.
Everything's going his way.
Yeah.
I love that. And so he's in the bar. He's bought his first beer, and they took his $5 away and they gave him $3.50 back. And he's sitting there thinking, at $1.50 a beer with $35, he didn't know how many beers he could get, but he was pretty sure it was more than 10.
Yes. There's some great lines in this book.
I kept thinking going through, and I'm reading the lines. I'm like, this is the same sort of thing I love about Douglas Adams. Not only are there funny concepts in here, but the language itself is funny, right? The way he chooses to express it. I guess Douglas Adams has become the yardstick by which I judge all comedy writing, because it seems like I compare everything funny to Douglas Adams. But yeah.
Here's one line I highlighted. Shut up, Henry observed. I just love that. He meets Nina. Nina gets up in his tree. He wanted this woman to stay. He's talking about a gun, and she says gun. She pronounced it gone because she's Cuban, I believe. Puggy thought it was beautiful the way she pronounced it. He wanted this woman to stay in his tree forever, pronouncing things. just delightful. And I think one of my favorite lines from this book, Matt is hitting on Jenny, who's the daughter of Anna, who is married to Arthur Herc, who's one of the antagonists of the book. Mm-hmm. And he's supposed to kill her in a game of the assassin game. And he says, did you ever want to experience the thrill of riding in a genuine Kia? And she says, it's only a lifelong dream.
Yeah.
And they're just bringing the car around to pick up his dad, and they're going to be in the car for like maybe 100 yards together, but this is their first date.
Yeah, they have a chance to get along together there. Yep. There's so many sweet little moments in this thing.
There really are.
It's kind of an odd thing to write a comedy book about. A suitcase atomic bomb
It's
loose in the United States, and you're going to choose that as a subject for a comedy.
I've written a screenplay, and it's about not a suitcase nuke, but someone who's smuggling. It's a comedy. Someone who ends up smuggling the ingredients for a nuclear weapon into a strip club because they're doing a deal in the strip club. Yeah. And they happen to crash a bachelor party. So to me, that's not that. It just makes perfect sense, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's just a way of raising the stakes. And I think if you couldn't tell, Dave Barry clearly has a bug up his ass about being forced to turn on his laptop at the because that comes up again and again and again. He leans hard into that.
Yep. The security guard at the airport, these people had pushed through without being scanned. They might be carrying concealed laptops.
Yes. So this turns out to be a significant plot point that everyone has to turn on their laptop to prove it's not a bomb. So when someone shows up with an actual bomb, they force them to turn it on to prove that it's not a bomb.
Yep.
Yeah.
It really puzzled the security people because all the training was about laptops, not about portable garbage disposals.
Yeah. So much fun.
Yeah. I loved Snake. I mean, as slimy and stupid a character as it was just so fun to see him grab an idea and clutch onto it.
He's going to be a drug kingpin.
He's going to become a kingpin. He's heard that they were, the Bahamas were kind to kingpins.
Yeah.
And now that he's got the gun, he's realized it's effectively a magic wand. He points it at people, they do what he wants. And at some point he's like, we're winning. What do you mean we're winning? We're winning. We've got the suitcase. We've got the money. We handcuffed the cops. We're on our way to a plane. We're winning, and we're going to keep on winning.
A lot of really dim characters in this. Puggy's pretty dim, although he's one of the good guys. Snake and Eddie barely have enough intelligence between them to light a match. They're just, not bright.
God, the pantyhose.
Oh, yeah.
They shoplift some pantyhose so that they can use them as masks to rob the Russian bar. And because they're shoplifting and just grab what they can, they get dark pantyhose. They can't see through it.
Yes.
A lot of comedy comes out of those masks.
Yeah. So, and speaking of not bright, they do the classic, put the gun on the hostages, Eddie. It's like, stop saying my name, Snake. You just said my name. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does invent, Dave Barry invents a new Soviet Socialist Republic, not one of the standards, not Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan or Turkmenistan, but the Republic of, I can't even pronounce it.
I was wondering if you were going to give a stab at this.
Kyrgyzstan?
There's no vowels in there except for this.
GRZKJ-istan.
Yeah.
That's an extreme consonant cluster. Yeah.
But I love the fact that our two Russians got their start as cleaners there. Yeah. And their claim to fame was they knew which barrels you could safely drink from.
Yes, which cleaning fluids you could drink to get high without dying. Yeah. That seems like a very Russian thing to do. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, as first novels go, I'm really impressed. I was kind of stunned reading through this. I haven't read it in a while. Read some of his other novels. He's written 4 or 5, I want to say, in this genre. He's also written the Peter and the Starcatcher series with Ridley Pearson and some other stuff. But basically the second half of this book is a chase scene.
It is.
Yeah.
An increasingly frustrated chase scene. Yeah.
He spends a lot of time putting the pieces into place and setting up these characters, very sympathetic characters. It's all very nicely laid out. It's like, well, we want that guy to end up with that girl, and we want this guy to get what's coming to him, and he definitely deserves something. And then he sets all the pieces up in place, and then it's basically a chase scene, chasing these guys who are carrying the bomb to the airport and into the bay. And that's it, the whole second half of the book.
Yep.
And we get a nice little coda where we find out what happened to everybody. So.
Yeah, and they don't skip anyone, even including Roger the dog and the enemy toad. Right?
Roger the dog and the enemy toad.
Yeah.
That's a great bit where is it Arthur? It's Arthur Herc who falls on the toad.
Yep.
And gets the hallucinogenic bufotenin squirted directly into his eyes. and thinks that his dog is Elizabeth Dole. Coming to steal his soul.
And eating kibble.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's not a character in this that I don't appreciate. I was going to say don't like, but I don't much like Arthur Herc.
Herc's a bastard.
He is.
Yeah.
And for no good reason that I can see. But
he is okay. This is if you're going to fault Barrie for something, and I don't think it would be fair to, because again, first novel, and I would say his human characters are much better than say Robert Forward's characters from our last book. If you're going to fault him for anything, it's that his villains are not particularly deep or well-rounded or even well-motivated. They're just there to be villainous for the most part. Yeah.
The Toad's just there to eat kibble. Herc is just there to abuse his family and to be an arms dealer.
Yeah, to be an arms dealer, to hit on his maid, to mistreat his wife, and to offer up his daughter to kidnappers.
Yep.
What a sleazebag. Daughter-in-law, but still.
Yeah, well, Snake asks, wife, is she good looking? And he's like, yes, and so is my daughter.
Oh,
Yep. I said there's a cringeworthy moment in here when Anna is offering her body up to try and keep Snake away from Jenny. That is a little uncomfortable, especially for a humor book. But Dave did warn us at the beginning, this is not for children.
It's a humor book, but it's also a crime book. Yeah. And it's, real crime is happening. It's being perpetrated by idiots, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous. Guns go off. People nearly die. 2 people get shot, right? 2 people? At least one person gets shot in the foot.
Monica gets shot on the airplane and is in critical condition. And then, the feds shoot one of the Russians in the foot when they're interrogating him in the bar.
Yeah.
I forget if it was Ivan or Leo. I don't suppose it really matters.
Yeah.
They end up running a Starbucks back in Russia.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of Animal House, where we get all the little codas showing what happened to everybody, and they're so all over the place.
I'm a sucker for that technique to just what happened 5 years later? Where did they all end up? Yeah, I love it.
This was lovely. I just enjoyed this so much.
Well, if you like this, I think you would enjoy his other books in this vein, which I cannot remember the name of off the top of my head. He's got one about a caper that happens on a cruise ship, which also features a bunch of lovable misfits, sad sort of underdogs who get to fall in love with the right people eventually, and also just goofy misfit criminals who cannot pull off a caper to save their lives, even though there is real danger. And his latest is called Swamp Trouble, which is a lot of fun also.
Yeah, definitely we'll look into those. All right, anything else? Any other thoughts on this bad boy?
That's all I got for this one, except, if you like Dave Barrie, or you like comedy, or you like Florida as a concept, then check this one out.
Yeah, read this book. This is a good choice. All right. Well, our next episode is going to be our 48th episode. Do you realize that?
Oh my goodness!
It's going to close out. It will complete 2 years.
2 years.
Of this podcast.
That's crazy.
So I thought for that we'd go back to something classic. I think we're going to do a little George Orwell and take a visit to Animal Farm.
Animal Farm. Oh, that'll be fun. I just read that on my own recently, actually, but it's so short. I will happily read it again.
It'll follow this Dave Barrie perfectly.
All right.
See you in 2 weeks.